Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Stages of Sound, or welcome to Stages of Sound if this is your first time, where we go through a soundtrack to a game every week. This week, it's very exciting, a game that's very dear to Mackenzie and my hearts, Super Mario Galaxy for the Nintendo Wii.
What better way
What better way?
What better
I couldn't
game
agree more.
to put on episode 1? We've never had an episode before.
Yeah, not a single one. We should probably open off by saying this amazing soundtrack was created by Mahito Yukata and Koji Kondo, the legend himself.
Oh god, you did your research more than I did. I didn't have that written down anyway.
That's about the extent of my research, but
Alright.
I felt it was important to give credit.
No, for sure. I forgot to do that. Usually I'm just like...
If you didn't know, Koji Kondo is like, he's basically the guy that has done all of the Mario
He's
music
Mr.
from the
Nintendo
very beginning.
and Zelda for the
Yeah.
most part. A lot
Koji
of the,
Kondo, wait, did he also do Zelda?
Yeah, a lot of the newer Zeldas he didn't compose it, but he has been like the audio
Supervisor?
yeah, the supervisor for the music for a lot of the like Twilight Princess for sure. I'm not sure about the
Dang.
super new ones. Probably
Either
less
way,
so. Anyway,
very impressive guy.
Koji Kondo is
And
great.
Mahito Yukata, I don't know who you are. I don't know what else you've done, but you did this, and that's enough to give you a check mark in my book.
Yeah, Mario Galaxy. Pretty.
Mario Galaxy.
That's a strong opener. Like, there's a lot to say about this soundtrack. It's very good.
Absolutely. Do you want to, we've both played Mario Galaxy all the way through, right? For me, it's been probably, close to 10 years since I played it, but I still remember it very well.
So, I used to speedrun Mario Galaxy a little bit. I've played it many times. Right. I 100%ed it a couple days ago. And this morning, I dug out my Wii U and played through the first 2 worlds of Galaxy 2.
Did you finish Galaxy 1 this week?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Nice.
So I'm pretty up to date, pretty fresh in my memory with the soundtrack.
I mostly, for my part in the research, I looked into Galaxy 2 a lot because I knew you were already playing through Galaxy 1.
Yeah, I have in my notes because I actually had a lot of things to talk about from Galaxy 2, and at the bottom of my notes I was like, okay, chill. I know Jack's looking at that one. I need to look at Galaxy 1
Don't worry,
bit too.
I've got lots of stuff to say about Galaxy 1 too. So do you want to open us off with, well, first off, what was the first song from the soundtrack that stuck with you when you went back to the game?
Oh,
that really stuck out, being like, dang, this soundtrack is incredible.
for me, it was always I have this on my notes as one of my favorites, but Melty Molten Galaxy.
From Galaxy 2?
Galaxy 1.
Oh, right, Melty Monster Galaxy
yeah,
is Galaxy 2.
similar names. Melty Molten Galaxy is very good. It's one of the last levels that you play before doing the final boss.
Wait, and that's the first one that stuck out to you as being great from that soundtrack?
Are you talking about what was memorable after I played it for the first time, or the first song that hit me?
When you booted it up this week and you got washed over with this soundtrack, what was the first one that you caught again and made you think, oh, this is just as good as I remember?
The file select theme. And I'm not kidding.
The very first one?
Yeah, because it as a kid, it was always really cool to me. There's a lot of different layers of dynamic interaction in that.
Oh, every
menu
single time
alone.
you zoom into it, it gets a little more.
So every time you pass your cursor over one of the planets, this is Galaxy 1. It's probably the same in Galaxy 2 as well.
I think so. I'm not sure.
Every time you pass your cursor over one of the planets, it plays a little ding synth sound,
and
just
it always
to the
matches
key.
too. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It matches the key of the chord that's playing. It's
we should probably bring that up as well. I don't think I've written it down, but that's one of the most standout things of the Galaxy soundtracks in general, is that every single thing that happens that has a tone associated with it, like when you pick up a coin or shoot an enemy with a star bit, the noise that it creates is always in key with the current song that's playing.
Yeah, well, that's been the case for Mario before, right?
Has it?
I don't think so. I don't think that's.
I thought Galaxy was the first one that did it.
That could be.
I might be wrong.
Well, I know they definitely brought it back for newer ones. It's the case in Odyssey. It's the case in 3D World, 3D Land. I'm pretty sure.
Regardless
not sure
of when it
before
started, I always have loved that feature because it that way every single sound is in sync with the music. It's part of the experience,
Yeah, I mean, well, going back to the file select for a second though, on top of just a sound playing when you hover your cursor over something, that's pretty elementary. But then there's also when you zoom into a new planet that you haven't started a file on yet, it I'm pretty sure it either stays the same or it gets less complex before you start the new file. But if you zoom into a planet that you have a file already started on, it adds like a drum beat and becomes a little bit more intense.
Right, gotcha. And on top of that, the bass tune itself is just very pleasant.
Yeah, of course. What about you? I mean, of course,
For me, I really, really love the tiny little planet that you first start off on. I don't know if it has a Gateway Galaxy.
Yeah.
That it's such a beautiful atmosphere on that planet, and the music that's playing. I don't know the exact name of the soundtrack, but that has always stuck with me as like it's so relaxing, and like you're just on this tiny little planetoid that you can circle in like 10 seconds, but. And all the graphics aren't, very like in terms of a space game. Mario Galaxy doesn't always lean into like the majesty and grandness of space. So this song in particular feels like almost humble, and it's hard to describe. It feels homey,
Yeah, I'm gonna come back to that too, specifically to that planet. Not quite yet, because it feels like a kind of later in the episode topic. But I do have things to say, good things to say. But like the planet, I know what you're talking about. It feels very like cozy and kind of like
and this is Mario's first time being launched into space, right?
That's the thing.
The emotional core isn't like insane in this game or anything, but you really feel like this should be something that your first experience with space isn't that it feels alien or that it's incomprehensibly huge. It's that it feels almost comfortable.
Yeah, but that's also the first time that it really leans into how big space is. Like the whole like vastness of like the black sky. Like I always get kind of like mixed emotions when I'm on that planet, because like it is very nice and very chill. But it also it does emphasize it emphasizes like the scale of it all. And I will get back to that. But yes, I agree with you. That's a very good one.
That was the first one that stuck out to me in any case. It's beautiful.
Yeah. So I just have here just some of the first topics. What is your it's kind of a big one to start with. What is your favorite all-around track from either game? Or I guess one from each.
My number one from Galaxy 1 and 2. Ooh. If
choose one from both.
Choose one from both?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's it. It's probably Space Junk Galaxy for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, that really relaxing, calming, almost homely tone. It really makes you feel like it's the sort of feeling that you get when you're stargazing, and you're just looking up at the hugeness and wonder of it all. And like it could feel alien, but it doesn't. They really lean into how beautiful it all is.
Yeah.
It's strange because I wouldn't feel like it sort of almost doesn't fit the setting it's in, because the Space Junk Galaxy is like a galaxy full of littered refuse, right? That, I don't know, astronauts left behind when they... You know how in the real world astronauts jet their detritus off into space?
Space
this is like
everywhere.
A galaxy just composed of nothing but that.
Sure.
It shouldn't be beautiful at all. But it still does sort of fit that environment as well. Like, it's just the past of everybody that's come through here, and you're going around on it, and it's so unbelievably beautiful.
Yeah.
The most beautiful song from that soundtrack for sure.
I would agree with that. It's definitely it catches you off guard a little bit too, because it's the first track that's really like that. Like there was the Gateway before that, but
this is doubling down into it.
All the other levels, it's been like Good Egg and the Bee Galaxy,
Honey Hive,
and,
yeah,
like, Mega Light,
okay.
And then suddenly you're launched.
Now
into...
you're not gonna don't try to
I'm not
smack
saying those
talk
ones are
Honey
bad.
Hive.
I'm just talking about the character of it.
Yeah. And like I said, it almost feels like a mismatch because Space Junk is sort of... In theory, it should be something that, I don't know, like a grungy sort of theme plays, but...
I definitely think they could get away with something kind of spooky or like sci-fi, like kind of like a Metroid-style ambience kind of thing.
Yeah.
And kind of maintaining the same, like, setting, and it would fit. But I think
instead, they went for something beautiful.
Yeah. I think what they did in that one was perfect. And that brings me to...
What is your favorite song from both games, Mackenzie?
Okay.
You can't just ask me.
Well, say your Galaxy 2 pick first. And then I'll go on.
That was my favorite of both of them.
Oh,
together.
I see.
But that is inherently my favorite of Galaxy 1.
Yeah.
If I then go over to my favorite of Galaxy 2, this might be a bit of a sleeper pick, and it's a very different tone from the others, but probably Bowser Jr.'s Fort.
Me too. I have that written on my page. Yeah.
As your absolute
Bowser
favorite
Jr.'s
from
Fire
Galaxy
Flotilla.
2?
Yeah.
It's
super
so good.
It's like a perfect balance of like whimsical and militaristic.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Very
it feels like a child has set up a little military fort in their bedroom.
We keep touching on bigger topics that I want to cover later because I think I know how they did it. But I want to talk about another
how
one
they
too.
established that tone. Sure. Yeah, we'll just touch on that now. For me, Bowser Jr.'s Fort is my favorite from Galaxy 2.
I will each of mine has I kind of cheated. Each of them have kind of two. But for different reasons.
Sure.
Galaxy 2 was more I just couldn't decide and I didn't really have time to like think it through.
Right.
Galaxy 1, it's Melty Molten Galaxy is still my favorite for just how it's composed. I think it's a very, very well written piece, and it like really captures kind of like it's like the penultimate challenge before you go beat up Bowser.
Yeah, I can agree
if you
with
play
that.
the game normally, unlike me, where I get every single star in the bedroom and then immediately jump to the center of the galaxy. So that's my favorite, just for like how it's written. It has always stuck with me.
Yeah, it's got a very strong tone for sure.
My favorite for how it is placed in the soundtrack is actually Freeze Flame. I think like it's very it's not the strongest.
I don't think I can actually place
world.
Freeze Flame. Like I said, it's been about 10 years since I last played the game.
Well,
What's it like?
So Freeze Flame, like its whole gimmick is that there's a planet and half of it is ice and half of it is fire, and you like flip between the two. And of course, when you're doing that, the music's gonna flip between the two as well.
The soundtrack also changes?
And yeah, and I'm always a sucker for stuff like that, just like really simple like dynamic changes between like two locations.
Yeah, the sorts of thing that could only really be done in games, maybe opera.
Exactly. Well, but it's so interactive. Like the player, like
right.
if you're, especially
you yourself switch between them.
I think the first stage of that galaxy is entirely in the ice level, and that's all you're exposed to. That's the only part you hear.
I remember playing through that for sure.
In the second level, it's you start in the ice and then fly over to like the interior of the planet where it's all fire, and the music stays the same. It's the same clear like harmonic material, same melodies, but the orchestration changes and the vibe changes. Like they add like a little like conga drum. They add like a little drum in the background. It's just like because ice you always get with like high pitched like synths and like really like sparse.
Of course.
Like you
in
know
every
that.
video game ever.
But like especially Galaxy, I think does it really well. Galaxy avoids the sleigh bell for the most part.
There's a song in Galaxy 2 that is the Christmas level where they just put sleigh bells in there.
I'm aware. Well, Galaxy 2 I feel kind of starts to Galaxy 1 is very much its own thing. Galaxy 2
gets very derivative.
It plays off of other Marios, like a lot of 2D Marios, like way more.
That was honestly, I was going to talk about that. I probably will talk about that in more depth later. But Galaxy 1 felt like it was really trying to set its own identity, which I think it succeeded at very well.
Yeah.
Galaxy 2, when it's trying to do that with stuff like Bowser Jr.'s Fort, or other songs that I'll highlight later, is just as strong, sometimes even stronger than Galaxy 1. It's at its weakest when it's just sort of going through the motions, doing fan service.
Yeah.
It can be more creative. And when it is creative, it's great.
Yeah, I mean, I think I will say that, like, as a game, Galaxy 2 is probably just Galaxy 1, but kind of better in certain ways. Like, I think I enjoyed the gameplay experience of Galaxy 2 a little bit more than Galaxy 1, even though I spent, like, way more time with Galaxy 1.
Yeah, I agree with that. They sort of streamlined the formula gameplay-wise.
But, well, you've seen, I'm sure, I can't remember. Is it Game Theory? I don't know. But the whole idea where it's like it's a different type of game, like
yep, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Anyway,
Galaxy 1 is like pseudo open world. Galaxy 2 is very like level based.
Oh, you know who it was? It was Barry from Game Grumps. Yeah, his whole like.
We'll try to link the video in the description if we can remember it.
Well, yeah, but it's the whole idea of how Galaxy 2 kind of like embraces its identity as a course clear Mario rather than a 3D like collect-a-thon Mario. And
so as much as that might have helped it in terms of like gameplay design, it might have also hampered it a little bit in terms of music design because they weren't allowed, but they weren't incentivized to get as creative and free with it.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Anyway, that's just purely speculation though.
And now for my favorite Galaxy 2 songs. We're still on this train.
Right?
Do you know Space Storm Galaxy?
Space Storm. Yes, I do.
It
really? That's your favorite.
So good.
I had it highlighted actually as a song that was better than I expected it to be.
Yeah.
But it's also rather short, isn't it?
It's pretty short. I'm a sucker for songs that use really low piano in that kind of way.
Yeah,
like
it
a
struck
really
me when
heavy
I was
emphasis on like a what's it like kind of like a driving low piano. Like it really gets me.
Yeah, it like that was one of those songs that like I started listening to it and I just thought, okay, this is another ambient track. Sure, I'll hear it through. And then as it went through, I just kept thinking, wow, this is really, really interesting. And it's only getting more interesting.
Yeah.
And I do wish it was longer because the themes and the ideas it was playing with musically were very, very cool.
I feel the same about like a lot of the tracks in here. A lot of them feel almost underdeveloped, but like it makes sense. A lot of the levels aren't long enough to really warrant.
Yeah.
that.
There's like I don't know, like Upside Down or Topsy Turvy Galaxy, stuff like that. They have like one idea they play with, and then that's all they really have
That's
time
in Galaxy
for.
2, right? Like
Galaxy 2, yeah.
Upside. I noticed this for the first time this morning. Actually, I was playing through that level. The music is different depending on the direction of the gravity.
Oh, is it
Yeah.
an interesting switch?
When you're like right way up, it's like just kind of normal, like a lead synth plus
Oh,
sorry, my computer's like yelling at me. I don't think it disconnected me. Anyway,
I can still hear you.
yeah, we're good. But anyway, when the gravity is correct, it's very kind of like a typical like lead synth with like a bass beat, and like it's kind of normal. When it flips over, the lead synth kind of drops away. It's still, you can hear the melody, but it's not as forefront. There's this drone, like this like kind of synth drone that takes over. Like if you're listening for it, it actually sounds a little bit ominous. Like
yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's trying to set in the tone that like this is normal direction for gravity to be.
Topsy-turvy direction. You're kind of, it's all kind of weird.
Yeah.
And I almost didn't catch it because I tried to beat the level without flipping the gravity.
Just as a self-imposed challenge.
Yeah, I thought it'd be fun, but there was a point where
did you get far?
I got a good distance, but there was a certain point where I just couldn't do it.
Yeah, I'd hope so.
I'd hope so. Yeah.
Anyway, that was what was our first train of thought? That's the conclusion to our favorite songs from Galaxy 1 and 2?
That's about right. Yeah, the other one I have written here for Galaxy 2 is Junk. Like I said it already, but the Bowser Jr. Fort.
Yep. So for my favorite song from Galaxy 1 is Space Junk, and Mackenzie's favorite song from Galaxy 1 is, what was it again?
Melty Molten.
Melty Molten?
Yeah.
Yep, Melty Molten. And then my favorite from Galaxy 2 is Bowser Jr.'s Fort, and so is Mackenzie's, but
I'll go with Space Storm.
Another one.
Yeah.
Space Storm. I can respect that, because Space Storm is a little less well-known as well. It's a little more low-key.
So what I want to get into now is something that I've noticed with you is that you're very picky when it comes to rehashing of old melodies and like remixes. What is your take
There's
on how...
There's a lot of them
what's your,
in Galaxy 2.
What's your take on, even in Galaxy 1, how they use songs from old Mario games in like the more platformy levels? You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
the
well, like,
theme,
what is it,
remixed.
Toy Time?
Yeah, Toy Team.
I don't necessarily hate those in Galaxy 1, especially because those are mostly reserved for the very, like, not exactly one-off levels, but the more sort of gimmicky, often shorter levels. Like the athletic theme in particular is used like that. And then in Toy Time Galaxy, they redo the Mario 1 theme completely. That's maybe a little egregious, but it's not the end of the world. I wouldn't put it anywhere in my favorite songs.
It's a pet.
It's okay.
It's actually quite a big pet peeve of mine. I'll be honest. Like I think
Toy Time Galaxy.
Well, whenever that kind of thing happens, like I get like calling back to older Marios, and it's definitely not like. I think the remix very well.
It's not so in your face about it in Galaxy 1.
I think it feels like a missed opportunity to me. Like
I agree.
If
totally
there was
agree
ever
with
a level for them to kind of get weird with their like kind of spacey sci-fi music, it would be like obstacle course levels like those.
Yeah.
And I feel like they just didn't do that. They just remixed old Mario level, because the music is already great for stuff like that. Obviously, like it's been tried and proven.
We've already heard it as
exactly. They had room for experimentation, and I feel like they didn't take risks in those spaces.
I totally agree with that. And like in regards to, it's even worse than Galaxy 2. Because there's more of them like that in those sorts of gimmick levels, and then also like some really critical levels as well.
I would like. I'm going to jump in before we get to this point because I know it's going to come up. I have one topic on my little sheet here.
Throwback Galaxy is not what I was going to bring up, just to be clear.
I know. I have a topic on my sheet that is just bolded, and it says, "Oops, all Gusty Garden Galaxy." And
I didn't pick up that so much. I wonder if the playlist I was listening to cut a bunch of that out. Did they put Gusty Garden like in its original form into Galaxy 2 a bunch?
Well, yes. I mean, it exists in the like final trial in Galaxy 2.
Oh, yes. But the perfect run.
What I'm more hinting at is not like direct quotes of the melody, but literally just saying like, that galaxy worked for its music. Let's just do it again. Same formula, same instrumentation. Let's just do it again.
Fluffy Bluff Galaxy.
Exactly. Fluffy Bluff did that exact thing, and Sky Station Galaxy did that exact thing. And neither of them. Do you remember the melodies from either of them?
I do, but that's because I just listened to them. I wouldn't have otherwise.
I played them this morning, and I can't bring them to mind.
I don't hate Sky Station. I think Sky Station
it's great.
is trying to differentiate itself a little. Like, it's still trying to follow that same formula and not doing it as well, but I can sort of forgive it for an introductory level. But when Fluffy Bluff also does it, it's just a little too much.
Like, I remember listening through like the playlist and like mixing up like, wait, was this Fluffy Bluff or was this Sky Station? The intro sounds like so the same. I lost it because it's actually the same music that they use in Cloudy Court. But
yes, yeah. I'm sure there are a couple examples of that.
Cloudy Court especially makes me so annoyed because I feel like they could have done so much more. Like, it's such a cool setting.
The themes that they're working with, the composers could have gone wild with it, but instead, I don't know if they were told to just go with a throwback or.
Because it's the nature of a development company like that to look at something that has worked and to not stop doing that, because why would you stop doing what works?
IP
and
continuation.
Here we are in 2023, and Gusty Garden Galaxy is like Mario's main theme now.
I wouldn't go quite that far, but it's probably a top 5 theme.
It's up there.
Gusty Garden Galaxy, we should bring up, we've sort of like passed it by, we should highlight Gusty Garden Galaxy from Mario Galaxy 1, because this is where it's from, and this is the episode dedicated to that.
Yeah, just as it being very good, because it is.
It is incredible. Like, we are slandering these other songs for ripping it off, but they did rip it off for a reason, and that reason is, it's kind of incredible.
Yeah, and the great thing is, I think they knew it was incredible, because they just use it in the final credits way more than any other new music
in
from
Mario
that
Galaxy
game.
1. And this is like Gusty Garden Galaxy. The galaxy itself is like one galaxy of what, 30?
Yeah, it's not
the
very
only
standout,
time that
like,
music plays.
gameplay-wise.
It's not, exactly. It's a very bog standard galaxy. But the music to it is incredible, and then they put that music that appears in that galaxy and nowhere else in the credits of the game.
They knew.
Because, they knew that it was incredible. They knew what they had on their hands. Koji Kondo knocked it out of the park.
Or the other one, depending on who wrote it.
I mean, the credits for that one in particular
said Kondo?
Koji Kondo.
Okay.
But, I mean, I'm sure that it was probably a group effort.
I'm sure.
The team that played it on the orchestra also knocked it out of the park. So
the team, I like that.
What? The band?
The orchestra.
Is that what I should say?
Oh, speaking of the orchestra, Nintendo's first foray into like actual orchestral music in a video game.
Was it Nintendo as a whole's first time?
I believe it was the first game, especially the first flagship game of Nintendo that was like live
that's
recorded.
Probably true.
They thought about it.
I think they did it great.
I did a little YouTube short about this, but like they thought about it for Twilight Princess, but it ended up not being feasible, and they ended up making that all MIDI.
Honestly, I don't hate that decision for Twilight Princess, but I feel a lot of nostalgia for those, not high-end MIDI, but like the MIDI that came out right before everyone switched to orchestra.
Yeah,
that sort of artificial sound appeals to me a lot, but that might just be my nostalgia.
That is very Twilight Princess. Twilight Princess is maybe the game that kind of captures that the best. But we're not talking about that game right now. Pikmin, I forgot about
Mario Galaxy switching off of that was a smart decision.
I mean, obviously not the whole thing
incredible.
Is live orchestra, clearly. Like, there's definitely some, like, electronic pieces.
Yeah, there's lots of... In terms of the general feel of the soundtrack, there is a lot of, like, bombastic orchestra, but there's lots of synth, lots of classic electronic music. Like we've been talking about, those soundtracks do like to do their callbacks, so part of that is calling back to their own history, which means chiptune stuff.
Yeah.
But I think they blend it really well overall.
Yes.
And I think it was a very smart step for them to take, because I mean, orchestras are great.
And they blend it in a very cool way too, because they do focus on the orchestra quite a bit. Like there's quite a lot of like at least like strings, if not a full orchestra playing. No matter what, there's always also like synthesizers happening, but usually they're not the focus. They're usually kind of like scattered
I
in
noticed
like
that as well.
the like upper parts of the register, just kind of like making noise, being like kind of like a background
spacey
sparkle.
tone.
But it's very noticeable and it's very Mario Galaxy. Like it's very characteristic of the soundtrack.
It has a very distinct sound. Yeah. I agree. Like Mario Odyssey did something interesting where it sort of almost went with more folk instruments and not quite as grand of an orchestra sound.
Yeah.
And that works very well for it. But
Well,
Mario Galaxy
it's not
really
spacey.
leaned into...
Yeah.
It leaned into like the grand feeling most of the time. And that also makes the songs like Space Junk and like Gateway Galaxy feel even more like small scale and personal, you know?
Yeah. I will say one of the levels that I think did the kind of synth plus orchestra really, really well was Battle Rock Galaxy in Galaxy 1.
That was one of my key topics for sure. Battle Rock Galaxy feels very, very...
It depends. It depends on where you are. If you're like on the Battle Rock or if you're on a planet kind of further away. If you're further away, it's just the like synth kind of thing that's in other levels too. But Battle Rock, its whole theme is just a reorchestration on top of that like kind of calm synth sound into like this militaristic kind of march. And it's very, very cool, and it's very well done because the original synth never stops playing. It's just this orchestra is layered on top of it to make it a totally different character. But you can still hear it.
And that gives you the feeling of like approaching a military base.
Yeah, and since it's layered on top of itself, like it's not a separate track entirely, that just allows you to go to other planets and have it just cut off one of the layers of the soundtrack. And it's the same
and it
track.
doesn't feel intrusive at all.
No,
It just flows naturally.
totally changes the character as well. So I think that's the best like example
In terms
of
of
how they
like
do that.
Yeah, integration of the gameplay and the structure into the music, Battle Rock Galaxy is near flawless.
Yeah.
So should we just go through some standout tracks from Galaxy 1 then while we're on it? And then
Sure.
eventually we can move on to Galaxy 2?
I want to talk about Toy Time a little bit, but specifically...
Yeah, we've sort of discussed it already.
No. Specifically the Mecha Bowser level.
Oh.
Because it has...
Do they change that up?
Yeah. It, I feel, is a precursor to what Bowser Jr.'s fort is in Galaxy 2. It's very similar. It sounds very militaristic, but whimsical. It does that, and I think it does that using time for some music terminology, folks. The Phrygian Mode. So for the uninitiated, a mode.
That's the silly one.
No, not usually.
Isn't
the
it?
Phrygian Mode is like a minor scale, just a natural minor scale, but with a flat 2. So you often hear it in like really kind of like ominous pieces. It evokes like Spanish sound sometimes, like the dun 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 dun. Like that's very flat too. So but in this one they use it in kind of a silly way. Like they kind of play. It makes I think that if the melodies and the harmonies were played with just like a minor sound, it would sound serious and it would sound very like this is like a really threatening kind of challenge that you're facing. But to make it Phrygian, somehow when they add it to like the kind of march feel, like I'm talking about Mecha Koopa right now, but they do the same in Bowser Jr. It just has a whole different vibe to it.
Gotcha. Interesting. So they had the structure figured out for how they wanted that sort of silly militaristic feel to go, and then they just expanded upon it with Bowser Jr.'s fort, you think?
Yeah, I think Bowser Jr.'s fort is definitely more silly, and that comes, I think, from the bass, kind of like the bum bum bum, you know.
Yep.
But there's a moment in Bowser Jr.'s as well that like it kind of throws you for a loop, right? Because it feels very kind of whimsical and very like bouncy, sort of.
Yeah, it's even got like the muted trumpets playing that just feel very tinny.
It just turns like 180 and becomes this like it changes key there, but it's just this gorgeous.
Does it go
string
away
writing.
from the Phrygian
It
Mode
becomes
when
it becomes minor there.
Oh, okay.
So it totally changes
minor.
character, but it feels more grandiose, like far more grandiose, and that's partly just like the really lush string orchestration, and partly just because they have moved away from this like Phrygian march.
Right, but it's even then in that song. I know that we said we were going to talk about Mario Galaxy 1 tracks, but this is my favorite song from Galaxy 2, so we should go into it a little bit.
For sure.
It still doesn't feel intrusive when it does that switch. It feels like a natural progression from that first, whimsical but still driving first section, you know?
Well, it's important to note that it's not a dynamic change, so it doesn't change depending on where Mario goes. It's just a
change in the track.
section B in the soundtrack.
Yeah.
So I haven't looked into exactly how it modulates, but it's switched from Phrygian to minor. It might even just be the parallel minor, so it might just be the same key signature, but it moves up a little bit.
The second gets raised again?
No, I'd have to look into actually how it works exactly.
Right.
But I more mean if it were I think it's E Phrygian or something, if it goes to A minor and it's just the same key signature.
I see. Gotcha.
Either way.
They pull it off insanely well in that track.
Yes. And yeah, because I definitely when I was playing it, I heard it and I was like, this is what they did in Toy Time Galaxy 2. That's crazy.
Oh, because you were just fresh off of that one.
Yeah. They also use Phrygian. Mario Galaxy, I've noticed a really, really strong emphasis on the flat 2 scale degree. That's just what has been stuck in my head. They use it for just everything. In a lot of the boss themes, especially desert or volcano boss themes, they use this in Melty Molten Galaxy as well. But it's the dominant Phrygian. So it's da 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 da. So the third is raised. So
very
it's
classical desert sound.
Yeah, but they do it in more than just the stereotypical desert theme. They use it in it's how they wrote I think first phase of Galaxy 2's final boss uses that mode. Even just when I think it's in Galaxy 2 when you're on the face ship and you're about to go to a different world or something. There's a chord progression that's minor 1 to the flat 2 chord as well. So it's it's not Neapolitan, which means a major chord built on the flat 2 scale degree, but it
gotcha.
It makes it's a very specific driving feeling that I really associate with Mario Galaxy. I don't know how to really portray it in a podcast form, but it's the bum bum bum
just
bum
all
bum,
throughout
right?
the soundtrack.
Yeah,
for sure. I understand what you mean. Yeah, that sort of very not intensely driving, but still almost a little tense feeling. Yeah,
and that definitely there's something there with their really heavy use of Phrygian. I don't know. It's very cool because Phrygian it's the one that uses the flat 2. So.
But then it's also when they veer away from that, it starts to produce even more interesting tones as well.
Yeah.
Even if that's the standard, it's a standard that you can elaborate on and change up.
Yeah.
To evoke different feelings.
I think
that's
it's
music,
very
baby.
well done.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, back to Galaxy 1.
Yes, sure. Well, I mean, that started with Galaxy 1. We're talking about Toy Time Galaxy.
Toy Time overall, I'm not a big fan. It's a good orchestration of the Mario 1 theme if you're gonna have to do it.
Toy Time itself, I don't care about. I was talking about the music that plays.
I know the last part.
Yeah. Do you know? Sorry, I'm gonna go into speedrunning discussion for a second. That is my favorite level because you don't have to use the spring one time.
You can do everything just with fancy movements?
Well, usually, when you're as Mario, if you triple jump or backflip and spin, you just go as high anyway.
Higher than...
So
gotcha.
For the Mecha Koopa, there's something called armpit skip, where you go at the very beginning and you just long jump to the side and wall jump between the arm and the body of the thing. Get on top of the arm and then you're at the top already. It's fantastic.
Gotcha.
I love it.
All right.
Anyway,
fair enough.
That's one of my favorite levels to play.
Mario, we should specify. We've probably said this already. Both of us are very big fans of Mario Galaxy.
That's why
those
we're doing
games
it for
are
episode 1.
incredible. Yep, the soundtrack is incredible, but part of that, it's hard to separate how good we think the game is as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I think.
Speaking of how good the game is, Good Egg Galaxy. A very strong opener.
Yes.
It's sort of standard, but this might be a bit of a tangent. When Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, it was either in 4 or Ultimate, did a remix of Good Egg Galaxy. like they did like the first half of Good Egg Galaxy, and then they transitioned it into, I think it was Gusty Garden, and then they did just the star theme as well at the end, like you know, the Mario star theme,
like the Invincible star.
Yes. Yep.
I'm not familiar with this track.
It's not a remix of Gusty Garden Galaxy anymore, or it's not. It's sorry.
It is.
Everything's a remix of Gusty Garden. It's not a remix of Good Egg Galaxy anymore. You're just like doing a Mario Galaxy, I don't know, medley sort of. But I wasn't a fan. I think Good Egg Galaxy is good enough that you could have dedicated a whole cover to just that.
Yeah,
you know.
I think Good Egg Galaxy is fantastic. I think maybe it doesn't stick quite as hard as Gusty Garden. I think it's hard.
No,
for something to stick quite that hard. But
it's not trying to go for that same epic feel. Like, it's a little quieter, a little more reserved. It fits really, really well for a World 1.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess so. It definitely has that same like bombastic intro, but once that goes away a bit, it's just like a. I'm trying to
chill.
remember. Yeah,
and it ramps up a little bit as it goes, but like it never hits those same highs as Gusty Garden. I don't think it needs
it's
to.
just a set track, right? Like it doesn't ramp up depending on where Mario is in the
No,
level.
I'm pretty sure
it
does.
through.
No.
Still though.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful. I wouldn't call it one of my favorite tracks. Like, it's not in my top 5 or anything, but like
no, but it's a great
for the place it's in.
Right?
Yeah,
like you get it like right off the bat.
Yeah, and likewise, I'm sorry to go one more,
no,
but
good.
This is sort of the same train of thought. Honey Hive Galaxy is also very good.
It is
because it's groovy and jamming. It doesn't go quite as far as I'd like, but it sets that tone very well.
I feel like there are kind of two different types of Galaxy track. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't know.
There's
to me that would be like Gusty Garden and Space Junk are the two types, and then there's Honey Hive off in the corner.
Oh, I guess so.
Thing.
Well, I was actually kind of slotting Space Junk and Gusty Garden in their own category for a moment because I think Honey Hive and its kind of type is its own thing. It's very characteristic and it's very silly.
The whimsical
like
type?
there's silly and there's like epic, and they're very kind of opposed.
I'd say that's true of Mario music in general, isn't it?
I'd say true. I'd say in Galaxy there's more emphasis on the epic, and it's less of like an 80% silly and more of a 50% silly. But the silly is definitely still there and still very strong. I think Honey Hive is great.
Yeah, I would also like to say, Honey Bloom and Honey Hop Galaxies from Galaxy 2.
Don't remember
Did you
those.
hear? Okay, so it is the exact same track as Honey Hive.
Okay.
Which I'd normally be like, you're just redoing the same thing.
Right.
But they're literally just ripping the same track, and it's a game that's a direct sequel in the same engine. Whatever, I don't care. But what they did is they added some very nice counter melodies, like on a very airy flute, and as well they've got like extremely muted trumpets just blaring along to add to that like jazzy groovy feeling. It's really, really nice.
I see.
Like the additions they made to Honey Hive, because Honey Hive in its own is sort of it's funky, but it's not like you're not gonna dance to it. You're just sort of like nodding along to it, like, yeah, this is quite solid. But like when they add those counter melody flutes and those muted trumpets, it really like, hey, this is really nice. Honestly, this might sound weird. If a game is like just fully ripping the original but then adding more layers onto it, I'm often more okay with that than like them just doing the original in their sound font and doing nothing new with it. If
that's
that
interesting, because I feel like that's
at least they're exploring new musical ideas in the original sound.
It's
right?
true, but a remix using a new sound font is kind of exploring new musical ideas.
Effort.
In terms of exploring new like timbre and new sound, like as it relates to that track. But I definitely see what you mean.
But it also feels like in a game like this where it's just going from like everything's in the same engine, the music all sounds the same anyway. Doing it like this is inoffensive, and they're adding more onto it. So it's sort of it feels like an extra bonus instead of, but you could have done something new here. You know what I mean?
Oh, do you know what? I think I have my least favorite example of just using old stuff in Galaxy 2.
Oh, well, I mean, the one there's a boss area that is just the Mario 64 Bowser levels.
Well, okay, that one I don't like very much either.
I wish I liked those because I really like the original, like the Bowser levels from Mario 64 have great music.
Yeah.
But this one it's sort of just like it's exactly what I was complaining about. They took the original,
right,
and then they put it in Mario Galaxy's sound font.
So
and they didn't even do that in a particularly interesting way.
No,
they still have like a lot of the same.
It does sound very
instruments.
Mario 64.
Yeah.
I have an interesting relationship with that piece because I played Galaxy well before I played Mario 64.
Played Mario 64?
So that was my first first like introduction to that piece. So I still love it. I think it feels when I hear it, I think Galaxy. But now that I know it's from 64, I know like kind of what they did, and I think they could have done more or just made a new track. And I think that's what I like.
Because otherwise, like Bowser Jr.'s Fort is incredible.
That's what I was saying.
Mario Bowser's Galaxy Generator as well.
Yes.
From Galaxy 2 is also very, very good.
I was going to say Galaxy Reactor, I have this on my notes, might be one of the best composed pieces in Galaxy. Like just in general, like it's a masterpiece. It's not like I didn't put it as one of my favorites because it's not like the most standout thing in the world. Like it's definitely like you hear it and it's like this is a final boss level. Sure.
Yeah, anybody that hears this song will realize this is a very high quality song.
But I think I remember playing it for the first time and being like, oh, this is for real. This is good music.
I think they nailed it. They nailed the tone. It fits perfectly. It's incredibly well orchestrated. It's good to listen to on its own, even. Like I just listened to it on my own, and it was great. So
I noticed when I think back to any of these pieces, the ones that I like a lot are the ones that have really, really good string writing, and I think that Galaxy Reactor is similar. Like it's the part that I really love in the Bowser Jr. Fort, and it's the part that I love in like the final level.
I agree.
It's just
I'm
really,
a big
really
sucker
lush string writing. It's great.
I'm a sucker for an armada of violins anyway.
Yeah.
I think that like 30 violins is my favorite instrument. So,
it's that's one of my favorite kind of colors from the soundtrack. My other favorite is piano. They use piano so well all over. Like high piano in Space Junk, just Space Junk, low piano in like I said Space Storm, and also some of the spookier galaxies in Galaxy 1.
Yeah, well, I think the biggest criticism I would give to these soundtracks overall, personally, is that they're a little unvaried. And that sort of comes from wanting to just take an orchestral approach. Almost all of the songs are very orchestral or very synthy, and or like with Space Junk, piano led, but even that is very heavily synth as well, right?
Yeah.
And they don't really veer away from those sounds very much. That's sort of all you're getting from these soundtracks, and they do it incredibly. They use those sounds for everything they're worth, but they don't really experiment a lot with the types of sounds that they have.
What do you wish they had done differently?
It's hard to say even then, but I mean, take stuff like I said earlier, Odyssey does it has a lot of varied instrumentation, a lot of varied tone. Like take something like Steam Gardens. Like it's a very abnormal track. If you heard that in Galaxy, it would really stick out. You know what I mean? So there isn't really stuff that sticks out. There's just stuff that rises above, and I think they could have done a little more to make it unique and interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all interesting, but unique specifically. And it's a very minor criticism, all things considered.
Yeah, I mean, overall, it's a fantastic soundtrack. Like, we chose one for episode 1 that was very hard to really harshly criticize because it's very, very well made.
I think, in general, we don't want to really often cover soundtracks that we don't like, like that we're just slamming. So
that just seems kind of mean-spirited.
It could be interesting to break down why stuff doesn't work, but overall, we just like celebrating stuff that does work.
Yeah, of course. I want to go back very early in the episode. You were talking about the Gateway planet. I think now is when I want to kind of touch on this.
This is probably going to wrap up overall our Galaxy 1 breakdown.
Yeah.
This is a good way to leave it, I think.
I want to talk about the soundtrack's relationship with scale, like physical scale of the level setting. So Galaxy, I feel, operates on kind of two levels of setting. There's levels that are very busy and very you almost forget that you're in space. You have like a blue sky, lots of stuff going on, just think of like Honey Hive, the like buzzsaw level.
Even Toy Time kind of falls into that.
Yeah, like it doesn't feel like you're in space. It feels like you're in a child's room, and a lot of robots are everywhere, and like you can.
Yep.
So there's that kind of level.
And then there's the very
there's
space
junk, and then there's the Gateway planet, and all of these levels where it's always the levels where you can see the stars and you can see the black sky. There's a direct kind of relationship with the music, in that the busy levels always have the busy levels to me feel smaller in scale. You don't feel like the majesty of space.
Yeah,
you feel like you're in a place, a level, like a small kind of area. When you're in a place like Space Junk or a place like even the Gateway planet, you feel like you're in space. You're on this planet and you can see the vastness of the like universe around you.
One thing that shows that to me, this isn't necessarily music related, but like when you die by falling off of a ledge or something in one of those other levels, it just feels like, oh, Mario's gonna tumble to the ground somewhere and hit it, and that's how he's gonna lose a life. But in Space Junk or any of the very open levels, like when you float off into space, you get the impression, oh no, he is floating off into space.
Usually in one of like the smaller scale levels, the thing that reminds you that you're in space is that there are black holes under the bottom. Platform.
That's quite true.
But what I wanted to get at was that there's like an inverse relationship with the scale of the level when it comes to the music. When the level is small and busy, the music is large and bombastic and either epic or characteristic in its own kind of way, like in Honey Hive. When the level is really open and really vast, that's where you get the really small chamber stuff, like the piano in Space Junk. Even like the Comet Observatory before it gets very big, like when everything's kind of dark, it's chamber, like the Comet Observatory.
But then
it's not played in full orchestra.
When it lights up, when the Comet Observatory lights up, it's almost like reminding you that this is the place you're supposed to focus on and not the space outside, right?
Yeah.
So when it almost feels like when it gets more orchestrated, the Comet Observatory, it's just like, now this is the theme of the observatory. And before it was the theme of this empty ship that's floating through the vastness of space.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
What you'll notice about the observatory is that as it gets more lit up, it gets more busy, and I feel like the scale kind of compacts itself.
We should have highlighted the observatory before this. I think the Comet Observatory is among the best pieces of video game music ever composed.
It speaks for itself. It's so good.
So beautiful. It's like, I mean, it's a waltz, right? It's just a very classical
it would fit
waltz,
in just like if you told like a way person who didn't know the Galaxy soundtrack that it was just like a waltz that you hadn't heard that like Strauss wrote.
It was made in the 17th century.
Right? They'd be like, that checks out. It's a very like classic melody, the very classical like waltz structure. It makes sense.
Absolutely.
But
the way that it builds itself.
Yeah, the very first time you hear it, like the first time you get to the Comet Observatory, it's played with, I think, harp, piano, and a couple of strings. Oh, vibraphone is what it is.
Yes.
So it's very soft and it's very, very intimate, and it's very, very spacey. You can
the ship around you is all like dark, hardly anything is powered.
So your focus is on the vastness of space and how kind of like you were in Mushroom Kingdom 10 minutes ago. Now you're in the middle of like the universe on the spaceship. I don't know. That's my favorite part of the soundtrack.
I think you're right. I'd never put that together before, but every time that it does really emphasize that loneliness, that openness, it always gets very small in scale. And that sort of, it almost feels like it's recognizing how little it all is in the face of the vastness. You know what I mean?
I felt that every level where you could see the stars and see like the black sky, it was almost always like a quiet, intimate track, with the exceptions of boss levels and Battle Rock. But Battle Rock, I think, also kind of plays into this because when it's busy and intense,
like a space armada.
you're close to the warship.
Oh, and when
you're far away from it, you can kind of see the stars. It's all kind of like scattered a little bit more. It quiets down and reminds you that you're very small in the grand scheme of things.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah, that's my favorite
I really like this connection. This connection is working on a lot of different like stages and a lot of different levels. So I think it's very, very cool.
I've been thinking of making like a full video. I'm obviously going to make a video about Galaxy at some point. Like I have to.
It's too good.
I think it'll focus on scale like that. Do you know the video essayist Jacob Geller?
I don't think so.
Look him up. I will link his video about Galaxy because he talks about scale quite a bit. It's very fascinating, and I think Galaxy does a really good job of kind of portraying it. The other way that it kind of does that is the music that plays after you are like a power star is available for you to grab. It's not climactic. It's not like celebratory. It's very peaceful and tranquil,
just
and
like
kind
when
of
the
mysterious.
Power star is floating in front of you?
because the music of the galaxy just cuts out for the most part. Like save for like a few tracks, it's just like a really quiet, like tranquil. It's very short and not very complex because you're supposed to like hear it for a couple seconds and then grab the star.
Yeah.
But if you just kind of sit with it for a bit after like a really like intense galaxy, it's like, huh. You know, it doesn't feel...
The grandness of it is sort of cut down because the star you're looking at isn't like a star. It is a cartoon star with a face on it.
I mean, but still. I know. It's just, it's a very...
I get what you mean.
Very nice, like, change in pace.
Yeah, for sure. Is that all that we wanted to talk about for Galaxy 1? Should we move on to the highlights from Galaxy 2?
Sure. I don't have a lot of those, but I think you might.
Yeah, well, first off, I want to do a very special shout-out to Puzzle Plank Galaxy.
Interesting. Is that the one with like violin and stuff?
Yeah, like I was saying, my one sort of critique of Galaxy 1's soundtrack is that it's very samey. There's not a whole lot of different sounds outside of the tone they're going for. And like Puzzle Plank comes in, and it's like a hoedown. It's just like a classical, like, I don't know, outback sort of violin dance number.
Yeah, like a fiddle kind of situation.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a fiddler playing against the devil. You know what I mean? It's whimsical and silly. Mm-hmm. It's not like a song I would jam to, but it's...
Oh, it's perfect for the level, though. Like, it's written very well for what it is.
And it's weird, because, like, are sawmills associated with the West? I don't know. Sort of, I guess.
I mean, that's one that I would slot into when I was talking about, like, whimsical versus epic.
Yeah,
like, it's definitely on, like, the honey hive kind of side of things.
But it's still, I mean, it's still, like... You're gonna be snapping your fingers to this track. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It fits perfectly with the level. It's unique. It's distinct with instrumentation.
I've been thinking about it for a second, and suddenly it all came flooding into my mind.
All of the music. It's so good.
Is that it?
Yeah, it's phenomenal. It's probably in my top 3 tracks because it's so distinct, and because it's just a really solid piece that, like, it's doing everything it's trying to go for. You know what I mean?
I think there are a few levels. Like, I think Puzzle Plank
I mean, that's definitely true.
Does a great job of doing that, of being its own kind of characteristic
I
thing.
understand why you wouldn't put it in your top 3 or anything. I mean, but I think it really speaks to me.
It definitely stands out. I think, oh God, what is it? There's like the Cosmic Cove is really good. It reuses a track from other, maybe even from Galaxy 1, but it's very kind of like, it's one of those ones where you can see the stars, and it's very like vast. The other one is
gotcha.
Oh, what is it? It's kind of characteristic in the same way. It's like the Fluzzard Galaxy.
Oh yeah, I didn't like that one very much.
Well, I don't like the gameplay of it. I really don't enjoy that. But the music, you're in a jungle. You sure are. It's not as
The difference between those is that, like, they're distinct, but not interesting.
Okay.
And I think Puzzle Plank is interesting and distinct.
Is it just melodically interesting? Is that what?
I mean, that might be what it is. And it might just be that, like, the tone they're trying to go for is easier in Puzzle Plank.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Or
I don't know.
Or is it interesting because it uses like a certain kind of set of instrumentation that it didn't really have to use? Like it kind of really like leaned into that kind of like country fiddle feel.
Yeah, and I kind of value that sort of thing. Like really going out there with something that didn't necessarily, like, when you think of sawmills, you wouldn't immediately jump to fiddle music, but it still fit really well, you know?
Yeah. I'm trying to think, because I did only play the two worlds of Galaxy 2. I love the kind of Galaxy Select music, the music that plays when you're like in like each world.
Oh, those
are great.
It's like got 3 different versions, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think some of them are just totally different tracks. Like, it's not like they really iterate on each other. Some of them are just entirely different pieces of music.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a track that changes 3 times. It's 3 different world tracks. Yeah.
But I think they're all great. I can't really remember them right now, but I remember 1, 2, and
pleasant.
3, and they're very nice.
Yeah, overall I like them. One thing, another standout track is Yoshi Star Galaxy.
Interesting, okay.
It's almost like not standout at all, but it's lodged in my brain. I don't know why. It's an earworm.
Yeah.
And that's the star where you get or the galaxy where you get Yoshi as well, and Yoshi in every single Mario game has always been like, when you get on his back, the drums part of the song kicks in.
I love
that part.
I love looking through the playlist of like Galaxy 2 and being like scrolling down to the bottom of the OST playlist and seeing like all of the Galaxy names again with Yoshi
with
in
the
brackets.
Yoshi version,
and it's just like the same piece of music but with congas playing.
Hey, I wanted to hear that song twice anyway, so I'm cool with it.
Yeah, go on.
It's a sort of, you know, how do I describe it? It's almost generic, but and it doesn't really go anywhere. And I sort of like it for that, which is very hypocritical to say. Like, it's just sort of grooving in its own little space for like, I don't know, a minute and a half, and it doesn't really try to do anything more than that. I'd say it's like a worse version of Good Egg, because Good Egg is setting up what you're the sorts of sounds that you'll hear in the rest of the game, and Yoshi Star is also one of the first levels, and it doesn't really do as good of a job of that, but it's still nice and low.
Well, I'm not a huge fan of Yoshi Star. It's not my favorite level, it's not my favorite track. But I do think it does a good job of setting up what makes Galaxy 2 kind of different from Mario Galaxy 1.
In that it's willing to like try different styles.
Yeah, I think Galaxy 2 branches out a little bit more and maybe plays into it has, I think, a lot more levels that are, going back to my kind of analogy, smaller scale. Like they're kind of their own location. I think
it's not as into the space theme that Galaxy 1 was, which is a bit of a shame.
But I think Yoshi Star Galaxy is the first one. Like it really is like this is the vibe we're going for, folks.
Yoshi Star is the prototype of that, and then they do it very, very well with Puzzle Plank, I think, is the way that I would look at that.
Fair enough. True. Galaxy 2 is also, I think, the first Mario game, correct me if I'm wrong, where beat blocks are introduced. I don't think those exist in any other game before that.
Before that, no. It is the one where they were introduced, yeah.
What do you think of beat blocks?
Is that a good thing?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think they're cool.
I think the music of the levels isn't very good.
Well, sure, because the point is that you have to hear like the 3, 2, 1 flip.
But
right?
I mean, like,
as a rhythm game,
as I said in episode 0, when I said in episode 0, my favorite game soundtrack probably is Crypt of the Necrodancer, and that game is all about matching all of your actions to the rhythm of the music.
Yeah.
And they knew that, so they made the music really, really good. So I'm not giving them a pass on the beat block stuff.
Fair enough.
Because they needed to communicate when stuff is changing. I'm sure you can integrate that into the music in an interesting way.
Yeah.
And they didn't even try here. It feels
well, I don't remember Galaxy 2. I know in future games they like put beat blocks in levels and like just play
in other games it's better for sure.
In Galaxy 2, and even when they're like introduced in other games, there's always like a beeping sound that's like, don't forget, it's gonna flip in 3 beats.
Yep.
So it's like it kind of holds your hand through it, but I don't know. I think it's
even if they had to do that, they could have made it more interesting than they did.
A cool element of like musical integration that's kind of stuck in Mario games since, and I'm a fan of it. I like musical integration in gameplay.
In terms of gameplay, I really like beat blocks. I just wish the songs
it kind of breaks my brain
a
little bit. Same with like the Flip Switch Galaxy. Like my brain is bad at like
I am much worse with the flip switches than I am with the beat blocks.
The level's called Think Before You Shake, and I never do.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. You're so used to your movement letting you get this far, but then actually you need to go a little less far than you think you do.
Yeah, or a little further, and you weren't ready for it, and then you fall into a black hole.
And you'll fall into a black hole a lot.
Yeah, sure will.
One thing I wanted to touch on for Galaxy 2 is Starship Mario.
Okay.
I quite like, this might sound strange, with the Comet Observatory, I get the feeling that like they had this whole grand waltz and like the core melody of it, and they knew that they could expand it into this whole big orchestration, right?
Okay.
But when you strip down that waltz into its core components, it still sounds nice, and like the instrumentation they use is very pleasant for the
It's just the same track but with much smaller
scale
orchestration.
Yeah. Now with Starship Mario, this is purely speculation. I feel like they made the first part first, and then because it has the exact same, gameplay ramifications. Where as you get more stars, as the game is closer to being completed, the music ramps up more and more.
Yeah.
It feels like they made the first version first, and then as it went on, they just sort of like slapped extra instrumentation on it. I'm being a little unfair. It's not that bad, but I vastly prefer Starship Galaxy 1 or Starship Mario 1 to the other two, I think.
Okay.
Because that homey, down-to-earth feel, A, fits the setting more, and B, I think is better composed overall.
Yeah. Do you feel that like Starship Mario was kind of like it was like obviously it was an attempt to be the Comet Observatory kind of again?
I mean, it kind of had to be by gameplay,
but
right?
I guess that the other thing it does is that even though the music becomes more complex the further you go on, the starship doesn't change. Not really. Like
It changes. It gets more populated.
Like they add more people, but like you can still go to the same places that you could before.
It's much less drastic than like the observatory lighting up and getting more functions. For sure.
And the other part about the Starship Mario is that you never really feel like you're in space because there's clouds and a blue sky everywhere.
Yeah, like we said, the Starship or the Comet Observatory is all about that space feel, and then Starship Mario is all about that closed-in feel. So,
Lubba and his crew.
Yeah, I mean,
man, I love.
I
Lubba.
like it overall less than I like the Comet Observatory. I don't think that's a hot take.
I think it's
but
less
I do.
memorable.
I like Starship Mario 1. I think it fits it really, really well. I think they didn't need to go further with it, and I don't think it really benefits from going further.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think this might be it for Mario Galaxy. I think we've gotten through most of our thoughts on it.
I'd say so. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Overall, what are your thoughts on Galaxy soundtrack as part of the Mario series and on its own?
I think that as a sci-fi video game soundtrack, it does a great job of portraying space and its vastness, while at the same time being a really well done Mario soundtrack and kind of capturing like the silly platform haha Mario music.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
sure. It's got both of those angles, definitely. That's a really interesting way to put it. I hadn't thought about that. Like, the grandness is there because they wanted to make it feel spacey, but they still keep, like, the soul of how Mario feels in its music.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Even,
That's
like,
a nice summary, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I would probably place it in my top 10 soundtracks of all time.
Me too.
I think so. It's again, as a standalone soundtrack, as a companion piece to the game it's in, it sort of ticks every box, you know?
I would say it kind of pioneered a certain type of game soundtrack as well. You know what I mean?
Oh?
Like,
you think so?
Well, for Mario at least, like Odyssey plays off it, I think. 3D World definitely plays off it.
That's true.
I think, yeah.
Odyssey plays off of it less than 3D World, I would say.
That's maybe true, yeah. 3D World is definitely very Galaxy adjacent.
Mm-hmm. Sort of almost to a fault.
Well, I suppose. Yeah, I guess
okay.
3D World is always like you're kind of on planets, aren't you? Like it's very Galaxy-esque.
But they didn't go all in with the theme either.
No.
I really like 3D World. I'm not going to smack talk 3D World.
I think it's a great soundtrack.
I really like its soundtrack too. But it didn't go quite as distinct as Galaxy did. And I think Galaxy, as much as I said that my criticism is that it doesn't go like for more unique sounds, it still deserves credit for going for as distinct of an approach as it did. You know what I mean?
Galaxy, you can hear a track and you can pinpoint it as a Galaxy.
Yeah, and overall, I'd say that is a strength of any soundtrack.
Yeah.
Unless it's unless you can recognize it for being annoying or something.
I see. True. I agree with you.
Okay. I had an idea for a segment.
Okay.
Related music. If you like Mario Galaxy, other music that you can listen to that you would recommend people check out.
Other video game music or just music?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you want to float by music in general to them, that's probably good too.
What?
But I'm only gonna have video game music, I'm afraid.
Well, what do you got for that?
Well, for me, in general, like if you really like that sort of homey, comfortable, it's all grand but it's still here sort of feeling that Galaxy's music sometimes gives in its more quiet times, I really recommend the Outer Wilds soundtrack.
I thought you were gonna say that. Yeah.
I mean, I was describing the Outer Wilds with that.
You were
lead up,
well,
so it makes sense that you would think that.
Outer Wilds, it has a very similar approach to Galaxy in some ways.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
Like
very like small scale, but still planets.
Yeah,
and,
like you're on a planet and you're in a very small scale place, but then you leave the planet, and oh boy, space is big.
Space is real big, and you sort of have that realization, even though it's all sort of silly and whimsical around you.
I don't really remember the soundtrack quite as well, but I believe you.
What I'll say is it really leans into, like, it has that duality. It doesn't have the grand orchestration, but it does have, like, the chill and whimsical, and also the, like, cold, harsh edge of space in that soundtrack. And if that's what you're looking for, I'd recommend The Outer Wilds.
For sure. I can't think of much right now that isn't also Mario.
Yeah, maybe just other Mario games for now.
Yeah.
It's like if the Mario Galaxy soundtrack sounds appealing to you, most other Mario games will surely have what you're looking for as well.
For sure. All right, Jack, what have you been playing lately?
What have I been playing lately?
What's on the game?
I've been playing RimWorld lately. Ooh. Oh, wait, hang on a second. This is another space game. Why didn't I just use that as my example? RimWorld is a management sort of game. In the vein of Dwarf Fortress or Oxygen Not Included, those sorts of games, right? And it's all about you crash land on an alien world and you have to try to set up a colony. And the music is very interesting. It's almost Western inspired.
Okay.
A lot of it is very chill. A lot of it is, when fights happen, it gets a little more actiony. When it's more relaxing, it gets more relaxing-y. And it doesn't really feel spacey at all. It all has a very, very, again, Western sort of sound. And it's very distinct.
Interesting.
Lots of guitars. Lots and lots of guitars, actually, now that I think about it. Some nice general percussion. I've been a fan. It's the sort of soundtrack that when I'm doing something relaxing but I want to have music playing in the background, I'll throw on the RimWorld soundtrack. Almost every song is good for that.
Nice.
So I guess it's not, you're not going to get a ton of variety from it, but it has a very soothing sort of vibe. And in terms of standout tracks from that game, probably one that's less relaxing is Don't Freeze Up, which starts very it's one of the combat tracks. It starts very low-key and building, because in that game raiders will attack and they'll start to approach from the sides and you have to prepare your defenses. And that music plays in general when that part is happening, and then when they actually start attacking and it sort of launches into the full swing of the melody, it feels very intense. Probably my favorite song from the soundtrack.
I wonder how is it when you're on kind of the planet, do you what kind of...
You don't go to other planets or anything.
Yeah.
It's all just, you're setting up your base.
Okay, so it's not the most space-themed thing in the world, or...
No, it's just got sci-fi, branches off of it.
Okay.
But it feels like you're setting up a home and a colony to stay in, which I think is why the homey feel of it works really well.
That's interesting. That kind of draws parallels to Galaxy a little bit.
That's why I was thinking, why didn't I just use this as my example?
Kind of the homey, comfortable soundtrack when you're going to the Comet Observatory for the first time, and that's where you're going to hang out for the rest of the game, Yeah.
That's a good comparison. So that's what I've been listening to lately.
I have been playing Nier Automata, and I've been playing it for about 2 hours now.
That's a game we could definitely make an episode.
Definitely. I definitely need more time to kind of get my bearings on the soundtrack. I think it is very good. I think it's obviously very good. No one's going to question that, really. Its use of vocals is fantastic. A lot of tracks has this really kind of nasally, almost overtone singing kind of style, kind of a wailing like female voice.
Yeah, it reminds me of, in episode 0 we talked about how Axiom Verge did interesting
very
stuff
similar.
with that. It feels like it has that sort of positive atmosphere going for it.
Yeah.
Not a positive atmosphere as in they're all happy, in the atmosphere is very good.
I feel like when it sounds like that, it's you're fighting robots and it's all very intense.
Creepy.
But,
Yeah.
I mean, did Nier won some kind? Did it win Game of the Year Best Soundtrack?
I
can't remember.
It won Best Soundtrack.
Definitely
sure
nominated. Yeah, it has a very solid soundtrack.
Very, very good.
I would be.
And I'm excited for you to hear more.
I would be excited to dive into it. Have you played that game?
I haven't, but I've heard all the soundtrack.
Okay. I honestly.
I own it actually. I downloaded it for $3 one day when it was on sale, and I just.
I got it on the summer sale last week, but it's crazy. I had never really engaged with anything Nier Automata ever. I had never looked at any of the gameplay.
Nier at all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I had never really engaged with it.
I could see it being the sort of game you get really into.
I enjoy it.
You specifically.
Really? That's well. I mean, it gives me Xenoblade vibes in certain ways.
Oh, for sure. It's the way that it's a story that's taking itself seriously,
JRPG,
but also very anime.
It's a modern action JRPG. So,
well, more on the action side than the RPG side for this, but still.
So you still level up, get weapons, get upgrades and whatnot. Anyway.
Yeah. Very unique soundtrack too.
Yep.
I second this. Go listen to the Nier Automata soundtrack.
I'm excited to talk about it. Very there will be a Nier episode in the near future.
Undoubtedly. Maybe not near future, but the future.
Well, don't kill my bit anyway.
Well, speaking of future, our next episode is going to be, drumroll please, Mackenzie, would you like to do the honors?
I was like, are you going to say it, or are you... Okay.
I'm setting you up.
Pokemon.
I'm tossing you the alley-oop.
Pokemon.
Ooh, nice dunk. Boom.
Scarlet and Violet, specifically.
Yeah, Scarlet and Violet. We were thinking of doing multiple generations, but we'll probably go through them one at a time over the course of this.
We will see.
There's enough to talk about.
I'd say if by the end, by like halfway through the episode, if we feel like there's things to talk about from other Pokemon games, we can jump into it. But
judging by how this one goes, I don't think we're gonna have problems filling the time.
No, I think it'll be fine. Well, I mean, we'll obviously get into it on episode 2, but Scarlet and Violet has a very distinct way of handling its soundtrack that Pokemon hasn't really done in the past. So, excited to talk about that.
It also includes one of my favorite composers, and it does him a little dirty,
Toby
in my opinion.
Fox
but I guess we'll have to go into that during the episode.
Okay. Well,
all right.
That's the end of the episode. See you later, folks.
All right. Let me get this prepared.
Hold on.
Okay.
We are Stages of Sound. Anywhere that you get your podcasts. Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, we're there. We're also on YouTube. That might be where you're seeing this. Who knows?
Yeah.
I expected this to be on my channel at the beginning, but it's not on my channel. So go subscribe to Notecade. That's my channel if you want to see more music-y content.
True. Subscribe and follow this if you want to hear more stuff like this. It helps us get spread around as well. Okay. Everybody, exit soundstage right. Yeah, that's the outro now.
Yeah, that's a sick outro.
For sure.
Okay.
Guaranteed.
Well, we've done it twice now, so we have to.